Good evening, this is Ink and Past. On this day, May 24, 1884, New Orleans, Louisiana, the heat had arrived early that year. Summer pressed down across the Gulf Coast with familiar authority. New Orleans was already alive with something larger than itself. The world's industrial and cotton centennial exposition was coming. Months of preparation had turned the city into a commercial engine. That energy moved outward, up rivers, along rail lines, into small parish towns still finding their footing. Across southwest Louisiana, in places like Lake Charles, merchants were watching New Orleans closely. What the city did, the parishes felt. On this day, Lake Charles was feeling it. On this day, the Lake Charles commercial ran a single line. It was brief, it was everything. The paper announced it was authorized to put forward George W. Ryan as a candidate for alderman. The June election was approaching. That one sentence was his entire campaign launch. In 1884, that was enough. Lake Charles was a small lumber and cattle town on the edge of Calcasieu Parish. There were no campaign rallies, no printed handbills flooding the streets, no telegraph wires humming with political strategy. There was one weekly paper, and if your name appeared in it, the town knew your business. George W. Ryan likely understood that. Ryan Street, bearing what may have been his family's name, suggests he already carried some standing here. A man didn't need a speech, he needed ink. According to the Lake Charles commercial, the paper itself served as the authorizing voice. It didn't just report the candidacy, it announced it. That's a different thing entirely. The editor and the civic structure were, in many ways, the same organism. Every household in Calcasieu Parish that received this paper was receiving the whole of its political world. Reports from Baton Rouge, merchant news. A reverend's cure and George W. Ryan running for alderman, that's democracy at its most intimate. One page, one town, one name put forward. Every day on this channel, we open the records for that date. If you want to know what happened on your birthday, your anniversary, the day you were born, subscribe. A new episode goes up every single day. But back to Ryan Street in 1884. The vote hadn't happened yet. The summer was coming. The parish was watching, and somewhere in Lake Charles, a man read his name in the paper and knew the campaign had begun. While politics stirred in the parish, commerce never stopped moving. According to the Lake Charles commercial, D. Block and Brothers had been telling customers all month they were leaving. The dry goods firm had run the notice in nearly every issue. They were moving to a new store. Bargains awaited, come quickly, but the move had not quite happened yet. Week after week, the advertisements reappeared. Deep discounts on ready-made clothing, boots, shoes, novelty scarves. It was reported that the stock was proving stubborn. The shelves of the small Calcasieu Parish store would not empty themselves. D. Block kept the notices running and the doors open and waited for customers to oblige. Across town, Rosteet and Moss had stopped waiting. The Gulf Coast summer was arriving, and everyone knew it. The firm announced it was selling its entire remaining stock of winter clothing and blankets at cost. Not below cost, not near cost, at cost. That was a merchant admitting defeat to the calendar. Cold weather goods sitting unsold through a Louisiana summer were worth nothing. Better to move them now and clear the shelves for something the heat could not argue with. Alongside that notice, Klotz and Marks announced they had received what the paper called the finest line of men's furnishing goods ever brought to the city. Competition was alive in Lake Charles that May. And at Haskell's old stand, eggs were selling at 15 cents a dozen. The small town's economy recorded itself in ledgers, advertisements, and the steady turning of the weekly press. On this day, not every story in the Lake Charles commercial was about commerce or competition. Some were about small pleasures. F. Chavins was running a bakery in Lake Charles, and that summer he advertised something remarkable. Ice cream daily. According to the Lake Charles commercial, the advertisement ran across multiple issues through May and June. In a small parish seat town in southwest Louisiana, that was no small promise. Ice had to be shipped in. By rail or by boat, it had to be stored. It had to last. For Chavins to guarantee a daily product, the supply chain had to hold. In a town where winter coats were moving at cost and eggs were 15 cents a dozen, a daily ice cream parlor was genuine urban ambition. Across town, a different kind of promise was being made. W.A. Knapp's drugstore was prominently featuring a testimonial. It came from Reverend George H. Thayer of Bourbon, Indiana. The Reverend claimed that Shiloh's consumption cure had saved both him and his wife from consumption entirely. It was reported that the patent medicine was being marketed across southwest Louisiana under a guarantee. Consumption, croup, whooping cough, bronchitis. A clergyman's word carried weight with rural customers. Knapp made sure Lake Charles knew it. 2 stories. one selling cold sweetness on a hot Gulf Coast afternoon, one selling hope in a small brown bottle. Both found their way into the same weekly paper. Both found their readers. That was May 24, 1884. We'll be back tomorrow with another date from the past. Subscribe to Ink and Past and follow history one day at a time. This is Ink and Past. George W. Ryan would go on to win that alderman seat. Lake Charles kept building. The lumber trade grew. The rail lines extended. The scattered settlements of Calcasieu Parish slowly pulled together. Down in New Orleans that same year, the world's Industrial and Cotton Centennial Exposition opened its doors. It was the largest World's Fair America had ever staged. Louisiana was announcing itself to the country. And places like Lake Charles were quietly doing the same, one dry goods move at a time, one alderman election, one ice cream advertisement in a weekly paper. That is how towns become cities. Not through single dramatic moments, but through accumulation. Small decisions, small commerce, small names in small columns. On this day in 1884, it was all still becoming. That was May 24, 1884. We'll be back tomorrow with another date from the past. Subscribe to Ink and Past and follow history one day at a time. This is Ink and Past.